So after we deal with elastic, inelastic, and perfecting our knowledge, the third type is the very important one, which is, let's suppose the example says Mitchell wants to increase sale for their ketchup. Okay. So as a result, they reduce the price by 10%. And as soon as they do that, the quantity did increase, but it increased by 10%. So we place the number in our formula, and what we see is a reduction in price by 10% leads to a increase in the quantity by 10%, and you get a -1. You ignore the -1, and so you're left with equals to 1. Because the answer we're getting is 1, in math 1 is a single unit. You can call it unitary or unit elastic. Both are acceptable. Okay, unit just means 1, uh, and unitary elastic. And the value you're getting for this is PED equals to 1. So when the price falls down in terms of revenue, let's check it out. What's going to happen to the revenue when price and quantity changes? We saw there was a 10% change fall in the price, and as a result there was a 10% increase in the quantity. So what should happen to the revenue? It will remain the same. This is one of the ones which examiner really loves to test. कि यूनिट के अंदर if you increase the price or you decrease the price, the change in quantity is going to match with the change in the price, and as a result your revenue is going to remain unchanged. So the way the revenue is going to work, and the diagram, we've already seen that flat diagram is taken over by elastic, steep diagram is inelastic. This one's going to have a very different shape. This one is going to be something like this. What I'll do is I'll mark some just to show this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to label it a bit like this, okay, with the pricing and all. So basically this is what's happening. Since we have established the idea that whether the price goes up or price goes down, the revenue remains the same. So I've actually made a diagram for demand schedule where I've kept the revenue constant. When the price was 100, the quantity you sold was 1. So that's my first point on the diagram. When the price fell down to 50, now I'm selling 2 because the revenue has to remain the same. So that's my second point. Now when the price falls even further down to 25, what we see is the quantity sold now has to be 4. It has no choice. Agar unitary hai, to it has to be 4. When you were selling about, when you reduce the price even down to 20, now you're selling about 5. And when the price is 1, that's going to be like down here, somewhere really far down, and the quantity is going to be far away at 100. The way the shape is going to go is like this. And just going to keep on moving in this direction, way far off somewhere. It's going to go up till 100 far, far away at the price of 1. But we have the main shape. It is a downward sloping curve. But this downward sloping is like a curvy curve like this. In math, this shape has a special name. It's called a rectangular hyperbola. So this is the rectangular hyperbola. This is about unitary. The thing is, let me show you one impact of the revenue, basically exactly what's happening. When the price was 50, I was selling 2 units and that was my revenue. When the price falls to 25, I sell 4 and this is my new revenue. Let me highlight it even. My original revenue is this, and when the price falls down, my new revenue is this. So when the price fell, I lost this region and I gained this region, and they both look exactly the same, showing that the revenue is not going to change. That's the special thing about rectangular hyperbola, that the percentage changes is equals and the revenue doesn't change. Unitary is the third most important elasticity that you need to know. What we have is, they say, an increase in the price of life saving drugs. Life saving. Just by hearing this life saving, we can clearly think that it has to be very important product, highly necessity. Okay. The price went from 200 to 300, but it had no effect on the demand. You're still selling 30 boxes. So if I was to mark it, let's say at the 30 per, I was initially selling it at 200 key price, and now the price has gone up to 300, and I see I'm still selling the same unit. That helps me construct a demand curve for it. This is like a vertical demand curve. That's what the shape is. It's vertical. Okay. काफी हद तक closer to inelastic, because inelastic is also very steep, but this is even steeper than inelastic, isn't it? So let's calculate some numbers. Let's do the formula. PED is equals to percentage change in quantity demanded over percentage change in price. So price goes from 200 to 300, that's a plus 50%. All right, so from the calculator's point of view, since the demand is not changing at all, the percentage change in demand is 0%. So just to avoid any confusion, in your calculator, you put in the numbers 0 divided by 50. Okay. And when you do that, your calculator is going to have a definitive answer for it. 0 divided by 50 is going to give you 0. So that means over here the PED is 0. Now whenever you have a PED equals to 0, that's less than 1, isn't it? In fact, the 0 represents that the demand curve is perfectly inelastic. It's perfectly inelastic. That's the name for it. It's not just inelastic, it's perfectly inelastic, because change in quantity is going to be nothing. And as far as your revenue goes, when the price went from 20 to 30, from 200 to 300, the quantity doesn't change. So because of the rise in the price, because let's do it this way. Total revenue is price into quantity. Price goes up by 50% and quantity did not change. So your revenue is going to go up by 50% as well. Do you see that? Because there is no change in the quantity, there is no fall in the quantity. So by whatever amount you're going to increase the price by, your quantity is not going to change and you're just going to make that much more amount of profits. In graph, we can clearly see that your original revenue was this much. At 200, you were selling 30. That's your original revenue. And when you increase the price, your new revenue goes up by this much. So all you have is the gain, and gain by 50%, and no loss in the quantity. At the same time, if the price goes down for this, then you're going to lose the same amount of revenue. If it says price falls to 100, so 200, so you're going to bring it down to 100. and so your marking is going to be like this. Obviously your revenue is going to go down, and this will become your loss region. You won't have the gain wala part in that case, that those will be two separate diagrams to clarify the positions. Okay, in this fifth type, what we have is there was an increase in the quantity demanded for bananas from, say, 20 to 30, while the price remains unchanged at 30. Okay, so this is how the demand curve looks like for this, because price remains unchanged and the quantity went from 20 to 30. Yeah, this is going to be horizontal. Now, with horizontal, the thing is, let's do the calculation for it and see what's the deal with this. Percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price is equals to, so the change in quantity is from 20 to 30, that's about 50% increase, while change in price is 0. So if you're confused whether the answer is 0 or whatever, you just simply go into your calculator and you divide. When you do a division of 50 divided by 0, it's not going to tell you it's 0. Calculator is never going to tell you the answer is 0. It's gonna either tell you it can't be done, or it's gonna say it's a math error. Whenever it is a math error, infinity, this is the sign for infinity, so that means it's perfectly elastic. The PED is infinite. What's going to happen if I increase the price? Impact on the revenue if price rises. Let's see. Let's say I say the price, I'm raising my price of bananas from 30 rupees to 40 rupees. How much will I sell if I increase my price? So basically, if I raise the price, I take the dotted line to see where it intersects the demand curve. Turns out it doesn't intersect the demand curve anywhere. What this means is that if I raise the price, then quantity demanded becomes 0. So what's going to be the impact on the revenue? Well, revenue is price into quantity. I rose my price, but the quantity became 0. So my revenue is going to shut off. It's going to go 0 immediately because I'm not going to sell any. In fact, if I even lower my price, I don't have an intersection to the demand curve. Again, I will sell 0 units. So perfectly elastic tells us that the price cannot be changed. At the same price, I can sell more or less. If, for example, this was in my demand curve, what I need is the supply curve. If my demand and supply intersects over here, that means at 30k price, I'm going to sell 30 units. Okay? If my supply falls down, then at 30k price, I'm going to sell 20 units. My revenue is going to increase or decrease, that's for sure. Lekin, my price is not going to change. If I try to change the price, the revenue goes 0 immediately.